The message from the stars. The stars above Earth were quiet until the message came. Jack Carter sat alone in his small spaceship, the Rust Bucket. It wasn't a pretty ship, but it worked. Mostly. Jack was a mechanic. He fixed ships for a living. Not a hero. Not a soldier. Just a man who liked working with machines and keeping to himself. He was floating in orbit around Earth, enjoying the silence. Then suddenly, the lights on his control panel flickered. A high-pitched sound cut through the silence like a knife. Jack leaned forward, confused. "Warning. Incoming transmission," the computer said in a cold voice. Jack frowned. Transmission. From who? He pressed a few buttons. The screen went black. Then glowing blue symbols appeared, ones he had never seen before. They moved fast, like they were alive. And then, they turned into words. English words. "The Virellan Queen calls. The bloodline is dying. Only a human can answer. Only you, Jack Carter." Jack blinked. What? Is this a joke? He tried to shut off the transmission, but his fingers froze. The message wasn't ending. In fact, his ship was now completely locked. Buttons didn't work. Lights were flashing red. His engine shut down. Then came the bright light. A huge beam of white-blue energy shot down from the sky. Or was it space? It wrapped around his ship. Jack tried to shout, but no sound came out. His body felt weightless. The ship shook, metal groaning like it was being pulled apart. And then, silence. Everything went black. Jack woke up with a gasp. He wasn't in his ship anymore. He was lying on a smooth floor that felt like glass. The air smelled sweet, like flowers. A soft hum vibrated through the air, like music with no source. He sat up slowly, groggy, and looked around. He was inside a giant chamber, round and glowing with silver light. Tall alien guards stood at the edges, wearing armor made of crystal. Then he saw her. She walked in slowly, tall and elegant, her body wrapped in flowing robes that shimmered like water. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes deep purple. A strange crown hovered above her head, not touching her. She looked powerful. She looked tired. "I am Queen Elira of the Virellan Empire," she said in a calm, royal voice. Jack stood up slowly. "Where am I? What do you want from me?" The queen stared at him, sadness in her eyes. "You were chosen, Jack Carter. Chosen to help save my people. To save me." Jack shook his head. "I think you got the wrong guy. I fix engines. I don't save empires." She stepped closer. "You are human. That is enough. We have searched your kind for years. Our greatest minds believe only your species, only you, can stop the end of my bloodline." Jack frowned. "Your bloodline?" "Yes," she said, her voice heavy. "Our people are dying. Our future is fading. No Virellan child has been born in 100 years. Our DNA has become broken. The royal bloodline, passed from queen to queen, is fading. And with it, the heart of our empire." Jack was quiet. This sounded like something out of a fantasy story. "And you think I can fix this? How?" The queen didn't blink. "Your DNA is compatible. You hold something. Ancient. Hidden. A spark no Virellan has. If you agree, we can begin the process." Jack laughed nervously. "You want me to have a kid with an alien queen?" Elira didn't smile. "It is not like that. It is science. A merge of essence. But time is short. There are those who would kill me before I can continue the legacy." Suddenly, alarms rang out across the chamber. The queen's guards shouted in a strange language. Explosions shook the walls. "They found us," one guard shouted. "The rebels are here." Elira turned to Jack. "You must decide now. Will you help me live, or watch my people die?" Jack looked at the queen, at the guards running, at the walls cracking. His hands trembled. He didn't understand this world. He didn't want to be here. But somehow, something inside him said this wasn't a mistake. Before he could answer, the doors blew open, and dark figures stormed inside. The last queen of Vireller. Smoke filled the air. Alarms screamed. The silver walls of the royal chamber shook as another explosion thundered outside. Jack Carter stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. Just moments ago, he was a ship mechanic orbiting Earth. Now, he was standing in a crumbling alien palace with a dying queen asking him to save her empire. Guards with glowing weapons surrounded the queen, forming a wall between her and the dark-armored rebels charging in. The rebels looked different, like shadowy versions of the guards. Same species, same glowing skin, but their faces were twisted with anger. "Protect the queen," a guard shouted. Jack didn't know what to do. He had no weapon, no training, no idea what was going on. But when one of the rebels raised a blaster and aimed straight at Queen Heir, Jack moved without thinking. He tackled her to the ground just as the shot fired. It burned through the air where her head had been. The blast struck a pillar instead, sending stone flying. Heir looked at Jack, shocked. "You would protect me," she whispered. "I don't even know you," Jack said, panting. "But I'm not gonna watch someone die in front of me." The queen gave him a strange look, as if seeing something in him for the first time. Her guards managed to hold the rebels back long enough for a hidden wall to open behind the throne. "This way," one of the guards yelled. Heir grabbed Jack's hand and pulled him through the passage. They ran down a glowing hallway that pulsed with light. Behind them, the sounds of battle grew distant, but the fear stayed close. They arrived in a quiet, sealed chamber. The walls shimmered with stars, like they were inside the sky itself. It was peaceful, for now. Jack collapsed onto a soft bench, breathing hard. "Okay. Now can someone please tell me what the hell is going on?" The queen stood tall, though her hands were shaking. "You deserve the truth, Jack Carter. Everything." She raised her hand. The walls lit up, revealing floating images, tall cities of crystal, golden skies, and crowds of shining beings cheering as a younger Heir stood on a balcony. "This was Vireller," she said softly. "Once the heart of the galaxy. We were wise, powerful, proud." Jack watched silently. The images changed. Now the skies were dark, the buildings broken, the people scared. But we forgot to grow. We forgot to change. For thousands of years, the royal bloodline ruled alone. But something happened. Our bodies stopped creating life. Our scientists found that our DNA was becoming hollow, empty. "Why?" Jack asked. "Too much perfection," Heir answered bitterly. "Too many centuries of the same. We became weak inside. My people can no longer reproduce, and without a new heir, my line will die. And when I die, the last light of Vireller will fade." She turned to him. "Then we discovered something strange, a pattern in your kind. Humans, your DNA holds chaos, possibility, life. We believe your kind may be the key to unlocking our future." Jack was silent. This was heavy. Too much. "So what, you picked a human to mate with the queen?" he asked, half joking. Heir didn't smile. "We do not need your body. We need your essence, your genetic spark. The merging process is scientific, sacred. No physical contact is required. But only a match with strong emotional strength can survive it. And you, Jack Carter, have something rare." Jack raised an eyebrow. "And you figured that out from what?" "My old toolbox." Heir stepped closer. "You leaped to save someone you didn't know. You acted without fear. That is not common, even among your kind. And there's something else." She raised her hand. A glowing cube appeared in the air, showing images from Jack's life. His lonely ship. A photo of him with an older woman, his mother before she died. His time in war, helping injured soldiers. His discharge. his silence. Jack looked away. "You've been watching me." "We've been watching Earth for years," she said gently, "looking for one human who might carry the fire needed to reignite our legacy. You are the only one who responded to the call." He stared at the cube. His past. His pain. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "Neither did I," Elira replied softly. "But now we're both here." A silence passed between them. Two beings from different worlds, both broken in different ways. Then the cube blinked red. A guard entered quickly. "Your Majesty, the rebels are spreading across the ship. We must move to the sanctuary vault." Elira nodded. "Prepare the stasis field. The merge must happen soon." Jack stood. "You're still planning to do this, even while under attack?" "If I die before the merging," she said, "everything ends. The rebels want the Empire to fall. They don't believe in the legacy." Jack took a deep breath. "And you're sure it has to be me?" She stepped closer. "I'm not asking you to be a hero, Jack Carter. I'm asking you to give us one last chance." He looked into her eyes. They weren't cold. They weren't alien. They were tired and full of hope. "Fine," he said. "I'll do it." A small smile touched her lips. "Then come. The future waits." But as they stepped toward the door, the lights flickered again. The rebels were already inside the sanctuary vault, and they weren't coming to talk. The rebel Varellans. The vault doors groaned open with a deep, ancient sound, like something older than time itself was waking up. Jack Carter and Queen Elira froze. 5 rebels stepped into the room, cloaked in black armor that shimmered like dark glass. They moved like shadows, silent and quick, weapons raised. Behind them, more poured in. An army, fast and focused. Elira stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "You do not belong here." The lead rebel pulled off his helmet. Jack's eyes widened. The man had the same pale blue skin as Elira, same glowing purple eyes, same royal markings on his face, but his expression was full of hate. "Hello, sister," he said. Jack glanced between them. "Sister?" "Yes," Elira said coldly. "This is Prince Callan, my younger brother, once heir to the throne. Now, traitor." Callan smiled, but it wasn't kind. "You always were dramatic, Elira. I'm not a traitor. I'm a liberator." He turned to Jack, studying him like a science experiment. "So this is the human. The one you've chosen to replace our entire bloodline." "He is more than you ever were," Elira said. Callan's smile vanished. "You would give our future to this. A broken little animal from a dying rock." Callan growled. "You've fallen far, sister." Jack took a step forward, fists clenched. "I'm not here for your throne. I didn't ask for any of this." "Good," Callan said, raising his blaster. "Then you won't mind dying for it." But before he could fire, a wall of light exploded between them. The Queen's personal guards activated the vault's defense system. Energy shields covered the walls, and hidden turrets unfolded from the ceiling, blasting the rebels back. Elira grabbed Jack's arm. "We must go. Now." They ran down a glowing hallway that lit up with every step. Behind them, footsteps echoed. The rebels were chasing. Jack looked back. "So, your brother wants to kill you. That's fun." "He wants the past," Elira said. "He believes the Empire should die with me. He blames me for the curse. Doesn't seem like a family man." They burst into another chamber, this one circular, with a deep pool of glowing water in the center. Above them, the ceiling showed stars, real-time visuals from space. A single golden platform floated in the middle of the pool. "This is the Sanctum of Essence," Elira said, "where the merge will happen." Jack blinked. "In the pool?" "It's not water," she explained. "It's a living substance called Lumis. It connects minds, memories, and life itself." Jack stared at the glowing surface. It looked beautiful and terrifying. "And you're sure this won't kill me?" "No," Elira said softly. I'm not sure at all. Before he could respond, Kalen's voice echoed through the chamber, now coming through the walls. You can't hide, Elira. Your reign is over. That human will not save you. Elira stepped into the pool. The liquid glowed brighter, responding to her presence. Come, Jack, she said. It must be now, or never. Jack stood at the edge. His hands trembled. This wasn't just about her empire anymore. It was about something bigger. He thought of Earth, his home, broken cities, forgotten heroes, pain, but also love, laughter, possibility. He stepped into the pool. The moment he touched the Loomis, his body lit up. He gasped as visions exploded behind his eyes. Memories that weren't his, tall spires, galaxies being born, queen after queen, generation after generation, passing the crown. Then, darkness, silence, the curse, and then, himself, a child born of two worlds, his DNA merging with Virelin light, a spark that had not been seen in the galaxy for 1,000,000 years. Elira reached out. Their hands touched. The merge began. Outside, Kalen stormed into the sanctum with his soldiers. But the pool was glowing like a small sun now. Light shot up toward the stars. Wind blew through the chamber though there was no air. Kalen screamed, "Stop them!" But he was too late. The light exploded. And then, silence. Jack opened his eyes. He was floating above the pool, glowing with energy. Elira floated beside him, tears in her eyes. It worked, she whispered. Jack, it worked. He felt strange, stronger, lighter, filled with something ancient and beautiful. Then the light dimmed. Kalen stood at the edge, his face twisted in rage. You fool, he spat. You've just doomed us all. Jack floated down, landing on solid ground again. You keep saying that, but all I see is someone afraid of the future. Kalen pointed a weapon at Jack. But Jack didn't flinch. The Loomis responded to his presence, wrapping around him like armor. Kalen fired, but the shot dissolved in midair. Jack stepped forward. This is over. Kalen screamed in rage and ran. The guards let him go. Jack looked at Elira. What now? She smiled. Now we begin again. Human instinct. Jack Carter sat alone in the sanctum of essence, the glowing liquid still pulsing gently around his boots. He was alive. He had merged with something ancient and powerful, and survived. But he didn't feel like a hero. He felt like someone who had just been pulled into the center of a storm he never asked for. Queen Elira stood nearby, her silver robe gently flowing in the soft breeze of the chamber's energy systems. Her eyes weren't glowing with power anymore. They were glowing with something else. Hope. You did what no Virelin ever could, she said softly. You carried the essence, and you did not break. Jack looked at his hands. They didn't look different, but something inside him had changed. He could feel the pulse of the Virelin vaults. He could sense energy flowing through the walls. He could feel the Queen's presence, even when she wasn't speaking. Feels like I've been rewired, Jack muttered. Like part of me isn't mine anymore. Elira stepped closer. You are still you, Jack, but now you're also more. He chuckled nervously. Yeah, well, being more comes with a target on my back. Your brother's not gonna stop, is he? Elira's smile faded. No. Kalen believes the age of rulers must end with me. He thinks no one should carry the legacy forward. Jack stood. And what do you believe? She looked him in the eyes. I believe in balance, not power, not bloodlines, just hope. We lost our way a long time ago. Maybe it's time we stop trying to be perfect. Jack nodded. Then let's make sure the galaxy hears that. Later, in the deep chambers, the Queen took Jack to a restricted level deep inside the flagship. They entered a chamber lined with tall glass pods, each holding ancient technology, strange glowing suits, and strange life forms in stasis. "This is the archive," Elira said. "The knowledge of our people, the hidden history." Jack looked around, eyebrows raised. "This looks like Area 51's secret basement." Elira tilted her head. "I do not understand that reference." Jack smiled. "Good. Means I still have some mysteries." They walked toward the end of the hall, where a large silver vault sat untouched. Elira waved her hand, and it opened with a low hiss. Inside was a small device, no bigger than a human heart. It pulsed with golden light. "This," she said, "is the Genesis core. It holds our future. With it, we can heal entire worlds, restore life, even Earth." Jack's eyes widened. "You can fix Earth?" "Yes," she nodded, "but it will only work if the Heir survives, and if we reach the beacon station before Callan does." "What's beacon station?" Elira looked at him. "A place where the core can be activated. Once it's online, no rebel can reverse what we've done." "And I'm guessing Callan knows that too," Jack said. Suddenly, the ship shook. Alarms screamed. A voice echoed through the hallway. "Enemy fleet approaching. Rebel flagship has arrived." Elira looked at Jack. "He's here. The Queen's plan." In the command center, Elira stood before her officers. Jack stood beside her, dressed in new armor, simple, light, but laced with virulent tech. His body still hummed with energy. He could feel danger approaching. "We will not fight to kill," Elira said. "We fight to reach Beacon Station. We fight to protect the Heir." A few officers hesitated. One of them spoke. "Your Majesty, he is not virulent. We don't know what he is now." Jack didn't wait for Elira to speak. He stepped forward. "I'm human. I bleed. I get scared. I'm not perfect. But I just saved your queen. And I'm willing to die for her cause." He paused, looking around. "Where I come from, we fight for what matters. Not because of duty or blood, but because it's right. So you don't have to trust me, but you should trust her." The room fell silent. Then, slowly, one by one, the officers nodded. They chased through the stars. The flagship launched at full speed, racing through glowing rings of space. Beacon Station was hidden inside a collapsing starfield. Only virulent ships could pass safely. But Callan's rebel fleet followed close behind. Jack stood in the gunner bay, watching ships dart through the void like angry bees. Explosions rocked the sky. Starfire danced across his window. Then Callan's voice came again, broadcasting across all channels. "Jack Carter, you're not one of them. Come with me, and I'll let Earth live. Stay with her, and Earth will burn." Jack looked at Elira on the screen beside him. She didn't say a word. Jack leaned toward the comm. "You want my answer, Callan. Here it is." He fired the main cannon. Callan's lead ship exploded in a ball of white light. "The Heir awakens." The chamber went silent. A soft hum, like a heartbeat from the stars, echoed through the walls. Jack Carter stood frozen, arms still holding the weakened body of Queen Elira. His breath caught in his throat as the glowing stasis pod in front of him slowly opened with a hiss. Inside, surrounded by golden light and threads of pure energy, stood a child. But this was no ordinary child. She looked no more than 5 years old in form, yet her eyes were ancient, deep violet with rings of gold, glowing softly. Her hair floated gently above her shoulders like she existed between gravity and light. Her skin shimmered with both the silver tone of the virulence and the human warmth of Earth's sun. She stepped forward barefoot, her small frame calm and quiet, yet filled with power that bent the air around her. Jack could barely speak. The Queen opened her eyes weakly. "She is the Heir." The child turned her gaze to Elira. "Mother," she said, in perfect virulence. Then she looked at Jack. "Father," she said in English, fluent, flawless, and full of something even deeper. "Love." Shock ran through Jack's body. "What? How do you know me?" I know everything, the child said softly. I carry your memories, your fears, your strength. I was born from both your worlds. She knelt beside Elira and touched her chest. Elira gasped. A soft light flowed into her. The queen sat up slowly, strength returning to her limbs. You healed me. The child nodded. I had to. You both gave me life. Now I give you time. Jack looked at her with wide eyes. You're real. You're alive. Yes, she said, but we're not safe. The new threat. Outside the beacon station, Kalen's surviving ships surrounded the ancient structure. The rebel flagship hovered in silence, like a beast waiting for the right moment to strike. Inside, alarms started to flash. One of the officers shouted from a terminal. They've activated gravitational disruptors. The station will be pulled into the star in 15 minutes. Jack cursed. Of course, can't just have one peaceful moment. Elira stood, stronger now. Kalen would rather destroy everything than let the Heir live. The child stepped forward. He fears me. Jack knelt beside her. Should he? She looked at him, and for a moment, didn't answer. Then she said quietly, yes. Jack stood and turned to the queen. What do we do? Elira pressed a glowing symbol on the wall. A hidden panel opened, revealing a silver capsule, a small escape vessel barely large enough for 3. You take her, Elira said. You protect her. She is more than royal. She is evolution. Jack shook his head. No way, I'm not leaving you behind. You must, she said. I will hold Kalen back. He will come for me first. He wants to erase the bloodline before it spreads. Jack grabbed her wrist. You don't have to die for this. Elira looked into his eyes. This is what queens do. The child suddenly raised her hand. Energy sparked around her. The station trembled. No, she said. No more sacrifice. A wave of energy burst from her, sweeping across the chamber. Screens flickered. Lights bent. Gravity shifted. And then, the rebel ships stopped moving. Jack looked at the display. What just happened? She touched their minds. Elira whispered. She froze their systems, their thoughts. The child's nose bled, and she swayed slightly. Jack caught her. Hey, don't overdo it. I can stop them, she said quietly, but only for a short time. Elira knelt. You must go to the core temple. There, her energy can be stabilized. She can learn to control it. If not, her power may tear her apart. Jack looked at the chaos outside. And how far is the core temple? 3 star jumps, through unstable space. Great, Jack muttered. Of course it is. The escape. The escape pod launched with a silent flash, cloaked from sensors. Jack sat beside the child, whom Elira named Solara. She looked out the window, her eyes scanning the stars like she'd seen them 1,000 times before. I feel everything, she whispered. The stars, the dying planets, even Earth. Jack leaned forward. You can feel Earth. Solara nodded. It's sick, but it can be healed. I carry what it needs. Jack blinked. Wait, what do you mean? Solara touched her chest. The Genesis core's echo. It lives inside me now. I am the future for both worlds. Jack's jaw tightened. Then we better keep you alive. He activated the pod's jump drive. In a flash, they vanished. Back at the station, the Queen's stand. Kalen stormed into the beacon chamber moments too late. Elira stood alone, facing his army. It's over, brother, she said. No, he growled. It ends with your blood. He raised his weapon. But the walls around them pulsed. The station was falling into the star. And Elira smiled. I have no fear, she whispered. Then the explosion took her, and the station with it. An ending written in fire. A new journey begins. Jack and Solara exited the jump near a glowing blue planet, a hidden world wrapped in mystery. This is it? Jack asked. Solara nodded. The core temple. If I can master what I am here, I can change everything. Jack looked at the stars, then down at her. You're not alone. I'll be with you. Always. Solara smiled. Then we'll save them all. The ship descended into the unknown, carrying the last hope of two worlds. Rise of the Human Protector. The hidden world was unlike anything Jack Carter had ever seen. The sky shimmered in waves of silver and violet. Floating islands moved slowly across the atmosphere, and rivers of glowing liquid flowed through the air like veins in a living creature. This was Nithera, the lost sanctuary of the Virellans, the last place where true energy could be shaped, trained, and mastered. And deep within this forgotten planet stood the core temple. It was massive, carved into a mountain of crystal, and surrounded by ancient machines humming with low, steady tones. Energy rings floated above its spires, and an eternal storm crackled quietly in the distance, like the planet itself was waiting. Jack stepped out of the ship, Solara walking beside him in silence. He could feel the power around her. With each step, flowers bloomed in her wake, and tiny stones floated near her feet. Her presence changed the world, and the world responded to her in return. But she looked troubled. What's wrong? Jack asked gently. I hear voices, Solara said, from far away. They call to me. Some are kind. Some want to twist me. Jack knelt beside her. Then we don't let them win. You're stronger than they are. I'm scared, she whispered. What if I can't hold it back? Jack took her hand. Then I'll hold it with you. Inside the core temple. The temple was alive with memories. Ghosts of the past flickered in the walls. Echoes of Virellan rulers, each one pouring energy into the world, shaping history. At the center was the Heartforge, a chamber where raw power flowed like a river of light. Here, Solara would learn control or lose herself. They were greeted by a guardian named Velen, an old Virellan with deep scars and glowing white eyes. He bowed low to Solara. You are the final flame, he said, the one born from chaos and order. You carry the burden of two galaxies. Solara bowed in return. I don't want power. I just want peace. Velen nodded. Then you must face the storm within. The training begins. Days passed. Solara trained in the Heartforge, learning to balance her energy with ancient rituals. Her power was wild, sometimes healing, sometimes destructive. Once, she accidentally shattered a crystal tower with a scream. Another time, she revived a dying tree with a single tear. Jack watched her from the edge, always nearby. He didn't have her power, but he protected her in his own way, repairing equipment, helping the temple staff, learning Virellan words, and standing guard at night. He had become more than a mechanic. He was becoming something the galaxy hadn't seen in centuries. A protector. The return of Callan. But far away, in the burning wreckage of the beacon station, something dark stirred. Callan had survived. Badly wounded, he drifted through space until a shadow reached for him. A forgotten Virellan weapon, locked deep in the ruins. A cursed AI known as Threxus, banned for centuries. It offered him a deal. Power for obedience. Callan, broken and full of hate, accepted. His body was reforged with cybernetic Virellan tech. His eyes glowed red. His thoughts twisted into rage. He became a creature not born of royal blood, but of vengeance. And now he knew where Solara had gone. He would find her, and he would end the human that stole his empire. Back at the temple, the protector rises. Late one night, Solara cried out in her sleep. Jack rushed to her room. She was floating above the bed, energy crackling around her body. Her eyes were glowing white. Symbols burned into the walls. She's entering the fracture, Velen whispered. If she loses control here, she will destroy herself. Jack didn't wait. He walked into the storm. Lightning tore at his clothes. Heat pressed against his skin. Voices filled the room. Whispers from galaxies, Lies and truths tangled together. But Jack didn't stop. He reached her and grabbed her hand. "Solara," he shouted, "you're not alone. You're never alone." Her body stopped shaking. The energy vanished. She collapsed into his arms, crying softly. I almost lost myself," she whispered. "But you didn't," Jack said. "You're still here." Velen watched from the shadows. He is not just her guardian. He is her anchor. Preparing for war. The next morning, Jack stood before the Council of Temple Keepers. He wasn't wearing armor, but he spoke like a leader. "My name is Jack Carter. I was once just a mechanic. I didn't belong to any kingdom, and I wasn't chosen by anyone. But now I protect the one who can change everything." He looked at each of them. "She's not your weapon. She's your future. And if Callan comes, we fight. Not for power, not for a throne, but for her." The keepers stood, and for the first time in centuries, the temple prepared for war. Callan strikes. In the dark of space, Callan's twisted fleet emerged from hyperspace. Black ships with red lights, silent engines, eye-controlled weapons. At the front, Callan stood on the deck of his ship, armor glowing with stolen energy. "Jack Carter," he whispered. "Protector. Pretender." His red eyes narrowed. "You protected her once. Let's see if you can do it again." A new empire. The sky over Nithera turned red. 100 ships burned through the clouds like falling stars, their black hulls glowing with crimson lights. The wind screamed across the floating islands. Birds fled. Rivers reversed. The very planet seemed to know what was coming. Callan had arrived. At the edge of the core temple, Jack Carter stood in silence. He watched the horizon burn. He wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Behind him stood the temple keepers, armored in crystal-forged suits, powered by the planet itself. Solara stood in the center, her eyes glowing gold, her hands wrapped in threads of living light. "Today," Jack said, voice steady, "we don't fight for thrones. We fight for the right to choose our future." Velen stepped beside him. "You were not born Varellan, but today, you lead them." Jack nodded. Then he turned to Solara. "You ready?" She smiled softly. "I'm more than ready." The invasion begins. Callan's ships rained fire from the sky. Dark drones dropped onto the temple grounds, crawling with red energy. Giant machines marched through the jungle, melting trees with every step. At the head of the charge stood Callan, no longer fully alive, no longer fully Varellan. His body was twisted with cybernetic enhancements. His face was half machine, half shadow. His voice echoed with AI distortion. "Bring me the girl," he ordered. "Kill the human. The battle for the future." The temple lit up with shields. Crystals shot beams of light into the air. Varellan warriors flew into battle with jet wings and glowing staffs. The planet itself seemed to rise in defense. Jack charged into the fight with a stolen rebel blaster and a stolen Varellan shield. He fought like a soldier. No, he fought like a protector. He ducked under drone fire, pulled down a war mech with a rope of plasma, and stood over injured fighters, defending them with his body. But deep in the temple, Solara knelt in the Heartforge, her body glowing like a sun. She whispered to the planet, "I need your strength, just a little longer." The ground trembled. Energy pulsed in every direction. Jack versus Callan. Callan broke through the front lines and landed on the main steps of the temple. His steps burned into the stone. His sword was alive with red fire. Jack stood at the top, blaster raised. Callan laughed, still pretending to be a hero human. Jack dropped the blaster. He pulled out a small pulse blade. "No pretending today," he said. "Just me. And you." They charged. Metal clashed. Callan's strikes were brutal, fast, backed by machine strength. But Jack was faster. He dodged, countered, improvised. At one point, he stabbed a power core on Callan's chest. sparking a burst of static that knocked them both down. Kalen roared in pain. "You can't win. You're just a man." Jack stood, blood dripping from his brow. "I don't need to win," he said. "I just need to buy time." Solara's ascension. Inside the Heartforge, Solara stood now, floating above the floor. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she wasn't afraid. The core responded to her like a heartbeat. She raised her hands, and across the sky, the clouds parted. Light poured down in golden waves. The enemy machines froze. The AI systems crashed. Kalen staggered, clutching his head. What are you doing?" Solara floated out of the temple, surrounded by spirals of raw energy. "I am not your Heir," she said, her voice echoing through the air. "I am not your weapon. I am not your enemy." She opened her hand. Kalen's weapon shattered. His armor cracked. He fell to his knees. Solara landed softly in front of him. "On your future. And your future has no place for hate." She touched his forehead, and Kalen disappeared, turned to dust, carried into the wind. The aftermath. The battlefield was silent. The machines were gone. The fire was out. And Jack stood in the center of the ruins, looking up at the rising sun. Solara walked toward him. "It's over," she said. Jack knelt, tired, but smiling. "No, it's just begun." She tilted her head. "What now?" He looked out at the stars. "We build something better." 1 year later, a new empire. A new city floated in orbit above Nithera, the Unity Spire, half Virilan, half human in design, filled with life, color, music, and laughter. Earth had joined the Virilan Alliance. Technology flowed between worlds. Children of both races studied together, played together. At the heart of it all was a monument, a statue of Jack Carter standing beside Solara and Queen Illyra. The plaque read, "They did not conquer. They protected." And from them, a new empire was born, not of rulers, but of guardians. On a quiet balcony, Jack looked up at the stars. Solara stood beside him, now older, maybe 10 in Earth years, but filled with wisdom. She pointed to the sky. "There's still more danger out there." Jack smiled. "Then it's a good thing we're not done yet." Solara grinned. "Protector." Jack nodded. "Always."